Good afternoon. Today we are here to discuss the founding documents that shaped our country, including the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights, as well as discuss some people who helped shape our country today. My name is Andre Jose. I'm 16 years old. This is Mrs. Ubaldo. She is 49 years old. And this is, in the flesh, original founding father, Mr. James Madison, who is up today 264 years old.
Nice to meet you.
As of you, sir. We will begin this, and I will ask Mr. Madison a question. Do you feel that the guidelines that you envisioned in the original founding documents that you helped to create are being followed today?
To answer your question, I do believe that the guidelines that we set up for this country are being followed, and maybe not in the way that we imagined it at first, but it is sticking to the core parts of our declaration, which is to keep everyone free in the country and allow them to say what they want. And so, yes, I do feel like what we envisioned for the country is still happening.
Excellent.
If you said free, then why did we have slavery?
When?
Like with Equiano.
Well, see, your point is invalid. When we were making the Declaration of Independence, we were not specifically talking about anyone that we saw were not equal to us. I am strictly talking about the white man, who is the person who made this country, and therefore we weren't really having a discussion on who else is free, because at the time we didn't think anyone else was at the same level as we are.
We'll move on. I'll ask you another question, Mr. Madison. What was the biggest issue that you were focusing on when writing the Constitution?
The biggest focus, and very next question, thank you. The biggest focus we were having when we were making the Declaration of Independence was making sure that we separated ourselves from the ideals of the British monarchy as far away as we could, to try to distinguish ourselves between the two countries.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we were making the government, we decided that the government cannot have as much power as a monarchy, and the people should have the choice and the freedom to do what they want. And that was our idea when we were making the Declaration of Independence.
So would I be able to say that the original government was created sort of out of fear of becoming a monarchy?
Yeah, our idea of the government, it was to make sure that the government didn't have enough power where they could turn it into a monarchy. This question is for Mrs. Ubaldo.
Yes.
So when I was reading a few documents the other day, and I came across something very, very funny. It was a letter from Abigail Adams to her husband, John Adams, and she was talking about women's rights being included in the Declaration of Independence. What is your stance on that?
Excuse me, Mr. Madison, before, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it sounds as though you're making the subject women's rights as a joke.
Yeah.
It is. It's not funny now?
No, it's not.
It's not.
It's been
I'm sorry, sir.
how many years? 264 years, and time has passed.
Sorry, sir, but women are very included in rights and
Why?
are extremely equal because they deserve it. What would you do if you were in Miss Adams' place as if you were writing that letter?
Knowing from Abigail Adams, or from what I read, she just wrote it out, but she didn't take action to it. But if she had the chance to, we probably would have had women's rights in the past, as we do now. But as in the past, the consequences would have been more strict, and I know some people would have been killed, or some women would have been killed if they had the chance to take protest against the unfairness of not having women's rights.
Who are you specifically addressing the rights to, and who are you excluding?
So your question, I can answer that just as I could the similar question that you asked me earlier. We weren't specifically targeting people that who get rights and who don't. We were simply trying to get away from the idea of a monarchy with limited freedom. We were trying to give freedom as a whole. And when we were writing down the Declaration of Independence, the idea of other races or this one being included inside the Declaration of Independence, it wasn't on our minds. And even though we were talking about the whole as a country, it didn't necessarily apply to everyone.
I have a question for you, Mrs. Ubaldo. How do you think the Bill of Rights differs today from when it was first written in the late 1700s?
Well, one of the rights, such as the Fourth Amendment, searches and seizures, it differs from the past because nowadays there are police going up to people's houses to look inside without a warrant. And as of then, the Americans have been killed by police brutality, and they're a part of the government, and that's it kind of contradicts the Bill of Rights.
Did you ever envision a freedom of speech of all people and freedom of religion?
I did because I wrote that.
Okay.
Well, I guess that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for tuning in and listening. Again, my name is Andre Jose. This is Mrs. Ubaldo, and this is James Madison. Thank you.